landscaping and crepe myrtles on every corner of the play area, just to kind of soften the look. I will note that the house that made the comment asking for the row of trees is like going to be 600 feet from this covered play area. With all that said, let me open this up to the applicant, see if he wants to come up and.
Good morning. For the record, Jason Allagood. Address is 5444 Highlands View Lane. View is spelled V-U-E. I am on the building committee with Geneva, and my wife is currently a teacher there. My kids both attend there, so I'm helping the school with this process. And just want to kind of give you an idea, you know, of what they're dealing with now. They've been in the building for about 3 years, occupied, and the number of students have kind of stayed the same, not much of an increase, but they currently play out back in the parking lot where there's a temporary basketball goal and there's some volleyball kind of set up back there. So as they continue to proceed and they have days where the weather is not conducive, they like to have this covered area. So just so you know, this is not an increase in traffic or those kind of things. It's just for the students that we have there now. And Todd told us about the request for a buffer, so adding trees, those kind of things certainly are fine with us. We want to make sure that it's, you know, the neighbors are viewed. Relative to the sound, we don't have speakers, planned for any speakers or lighting. More than likely that to deal with the church service, who, you know, is very spirited in their music. So I'm here for any other questions or discussions you'd like to have. As well, the headmaster, Rich Calla, is here if we have any questions I don't have answers for.
Any questions? Sure.
I know the rendering headlights, that's not the intent here. Is the intent to use this outside of just a play area, evening concerts or anything like that?
No, not from the school standpoint, no. No, this is just for the kids to play basketball, volleyball, have, you know, covered dodgeball, whatever it is, during school and early afternoon hours. So we don't have any intentions of that being used for that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Anyone from the audience have any comments?
Any comments from the audience? Public comment?
Good morning. I'm Stephen Jones, 1715 Clarendon Avenue. I'm the one that wrote the email, and I'm not objecting to the pavilion. Geneva has been very good neighbors, and we appreciate that. You've been wonderful neighbors. We appreciate that. The noise that we've heard past 10 p.m. we suspect is from the church when they have some outdoor events out there, and I would just ask that you enforce the agreement of no noise past 9 p.m. And yes, our house is 600 feet from the proposed pavilion, but we'll have to look at it, and so I would just ask for a visual buffer of trees or large shrubbery. Thank you.
Questions?
I guess for staff, is there current restriction on sound based on their current?
Yeah, their current conditional use permit prohibits loudspeakers, period. So kind of surprised to hear that they were using loudspeakers. But.
So in the event that something does come up in the future, that would be a request to go to
almost like a code enforcement
code
type.
enforcement.
And what we'll do is we'll reach out to the church just to let them know that we've received this comment and to curtail anything involving loudspeakers in accordance with the conditional use, and so we'll make that contact.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Elaine Rawson. I live directly across the street from the church. The address is 1533 J Place. We experience a lot of noise from the church as well that the church may not even be aware of starting at 6 o'clock on Sunday mornings when they're practicing and so forth. But My objection is the view. We see a big school bus out in front you could see it in one of the pictures. That is always out front, and where they're going to put the pavilion is still towards the street. It doesn't go any farther back, according to the renderings, than the church does. And yes, there are occasions, I don't know whether the church or whether the school is doing these after-hours events, but there is one particular one that usually starts on a Friday night, and then it goes through on a Saturday as well, and it is extremely loud. And it does go on very late at night, so my concern is that noise as well. And I also had a curiosity as to why the pavilion is not being built behind the school so that it's actually where the school is and not where the church is. That would make the view a little bit more pleasant to look at. You can see that they have the billboard for the Easter egg hunt. Those don't bother me at all. The bus kind of does, because it's kind of like a semi-truck being used as a billboard out front. It seems, I know that it's allowed, it just seems a little inappropriate, but my real curiosity was why the church is not being, or why the pavilion is not being considered for placement behind the school instead of to the side. And that's all I.
Thank you.
Good. Do you want to comment on that at all?
I'll just say that, and I'll let Mr. Alligood respond. I know in terms of our analysis, there's a floodplain as you get further back to the east. Yes. There are also some issues in terms of kind of directly behind the church sanctuary itself is the circulation for the school in the parking lot, and it would be all part of that. And I know one of the things we also had done during our review of the landscaping, the buffering, particularly facing New Jersey Road, is we asked Lakeland Police Department to review and determine if there were any security concerns with having too much landscaping facing the front. And I would imagine that would be the same issue if the structure were placed behind the sanctuary, is that it kind of gets away from the line of sight from the neighborhood and could create some security issues.
Yeah, they want to be able to see after hours when they're driving by to make sure that there are, no vagrants or any other ne'er-do-wells out there that are maybe creating problems. So they would prefer to have visibility from New Jersey Road there. I believe it is at least more than 200 feet back from the road there, so it is quite a ways from New Jersey Road when we looked at it there, and there was an existing, I believe, row of street trees along New Jersey Road there, so we thought it was well buffered from there and would be acceptable.
Yes, thank you. Again, Jason Alligood. Just relative to some of those noise issues, with certainly the church, and talking with Rich, weren't aware that was kind of getting out there. So knowing that we will absolutely have discussion with the church about those things and make sure that they understand, hey, look, there's requirements here. They just, sometimes they don't understand those kind of things. So we'll make sure that they do know that, and discuss things like the bus and make sure that those things are not, annoying to the residents. We certainly don't want that going on. So we'll do that. As far as location goes, you're correct, all the things you mentioned. I mean, the back of the church, that's where not only the parking is, but also the circulation, right? And that's a big part, making sure we're circulating, which the school does a very good job of, with their circulation and keeping cars out of the road. As well, further east, we're kind of just now encroaching into the floodplain, so it's kind of like a tight little area to fit what we could kind of get in there, and so that's kind of where we settled on that location. And just, we worked with the city staff, particularly on how the building looks. Originally our initial did not fit what they thought should look good, so we tried to match the existing building to make it look kind of like as part of one. So.
Any questions? Any other questions?
And just to clarify for the record, if there are any noise issues there, those will be addressed through LPD, so they can call their non-emergency line to report any noise violations, and they will go investigate immediately.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the comments. We do recommend approval, and I'll go ahead and read the conditions for the open-air play pavilion, which will be added to the conditional use for Geneva. Number 1, site development plan and architectural elevations. The open-air play pavilion shall be constructed in substantial accordance with the site development plan and architectural elevations included as attachments C and D. Those are the site plans and the elevations you saw on my slideshow. With the approval of the Director of Community and Economic Development, minor modifications may be made at the time of site plan review without requiring a modification to the conditional use. 2, intensity of use. A, maximum floor area under roof, 91 feet by 106 feet, or 9,646 square feet. B, maximum height, 32 feet 7 inches, which is measured from the finished grade to the mean height between the roof eaves and the ridge. 3, landscaping and buffering, in accordance with the Land Development Code, except that foundation landscaping consisting of a minimum of 1 crepe myrtle tree and ground cover plants shall be planted adjacent to each of the 4 corners of the structure. 4, canopy lighting. The use of lighting below the canopy of the play pavilion shall be prohibited. Any other outdoor lighting used shall be in accordance with Section 4.6 of the Land Development Code. Number 5, outdoor public address systems. The use of outdoor public address systems or other technology which amplifies sound shall be prohibited on or within the structure. And those are our comments. And I, again, would just like to say that there is a prohibition on loudspeakers that was done on their cup a few years ago. It's Section E, outdoor noise. The use of outdoor public address systems on both the school campus and the athletic field shall be prohibited. So.
Any other questions? I hear a motion to,
I move to approve this modification with adding a 5 shade trees along that, what direction is it?
The eastern edge.
East side?
The east side to buffer the neighbors.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And before we leave that, I just want to clarify, the staff is clear with that condition and as it was worded and everything? We're good with the amended language?
We're talking about putting this
Okay.
on this side. Well, that, over here.
Okay,
But they live, these folks that we're talking about live across in terms of the east side.
East side is to the back of the property, if you will.
Yeah. So you said the east side, so you mean over here, right?
Yeah, the pictures were a little confusing because when you went to the pictures, it said you're looking west and you're not, you're looking east. So those pictures are labeled incorrectly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll fix that for the city commission. My bad.
okay, everything's good?
Item 2, major modification of planned unit development zoning to increase the maximum number of multi-family dwelling units allowed from 152 to 288. Increase the maximum allowable building height from 2 stories to 3 stories, and adopt a site plan for a new multi-family development project on 26.8 acres, generally located south of the Pope Parkway, east of Hardin Boulevard, and west of the Villas 3, 1020 Parkway frontage road south. Owner GG3 Investments, LC, applicant Nick Everly, Hill Point, LLC.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Philip Scarce. I'm a principal planner with Community and Economic Development. Start with the location map. This is located on the south side of Parkway Frontage Road on that eastbound lanes as you're coming off of Hardin, headed back towards South Florida Avenue. The site is located here. This is it's adjacent, it's just west of the Villas 3. And then Martin Marietta, excuse me, to the west. Again, it's on the one-way eastbound one-way pairs right before you get to that 3-way stop to go back under the Parkway. I'm gonna stop here on the site for minute. The site plan is a little different than what you'd had in your packet, and I'm going to explain all the differences here. But again, this is a 26.8 acre site. There's approximately 6 acres of wetlands on the site. This is a proposed gross density of approximately 11 dwelling units per acre. This is currently an approved PUD, which allows 152 dwelling units. The applicant requests to increase that by 136 dwelling units for a total of 288, bringing that density up to 11 dwelling units per acre, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan land use designation of residential medium, which allows up to 12, between 5 and 12 dwelling units per acre. The site plan you see before you is a little bit different than what you had in your packet. The applicant had a meeting with the residents of Villa 3 here, with the residents. They had, on the site plan, they had more parking along this side, so they've kind of shortened that parking up here. One iteration of the site plan included access, an emergency access to the Villas 3. So access, and that was a big comment that we had from a lot of the Villa 3 residents, was that they didn't want to have access, internal access to this development through there. So that access was taken off. There's no access there. Their main access will be, on Parkway frontage south. So that was the big difference. There's a 20-foot landscape buffer along this eastern boundary line. And again, the previous site plan had the parking extend much further down next to these single-family homes in the Villa 3s there. So there's no access. The applicant also moved a trash compactor that was located on this property line away from the residents as well. And we'll go through some slides here. So this is looking southeast on South Parkway frontage road. Looking into the site, standing next to the Martin Marietta site. And this is just looking east, Parkway frontage road. This is looking southeast into their site. Not much to see. Aerials do much better at showing you what's out there. There's a small pond just across that vegetation there. And this is looking southwest on Parkway frontage road. And this is looking within Villas 3, looking into the site here. And you can see it's adjacent to some single-family structures there, which, again, there will be a 20-foot landscape buffer maintained. And hopefully, when we devise our conditions, we will make sure that as much natural vegetation remain as possible for the vegetative buffer. The applicant did provide some elevations. These are 3-story structures, 45 feet tall. Give you an idea of what they look like. So those are the elevations, and I'm going to quickly go back to the site plan, so we just stay on the site plan here. Planning, we received 12 emails in opposition. The majority of the opposition was traffic along Parkway frontage road, the increase of traffic. There was also a lot of concerns about the connection between Villas 3 and this development. There will be no connection, and a lot of comments stated they just like to see it, left as open space. So those were and I'm sure we'll hear from the residents as well. So they add more concerns, but I think traffic was the largest concern we received for this project. The applicant did provide a transportation analysis that was conducted recently. The analysis did conclude that all the roadway will not be impacted. There won't be a degradation in level of service to the adjacent roadways. So there were no recommendations. There was one recommendation for an eastbound right turn deceleration lane on Parkway frontage. The applicant still needs to coordinate that with the adjacent property owner and FDOT regarding that access point. So there's still some work that needs to be done in that respect as far as access. But as far as the traffic analysis, and I'll let the applicant speak more of that, there were no deficiencies in the level of service. So again, this is it's an increase of 136 dwelling units. And again, like I said, it's already approved for 152. With that, I'm going to leave it over to the applicant, and then staff can answer any questions after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Good morning. Mark Wilson with Kimley Horn & Associates at 109 South Kentucky Avenue in Lakeland, and with me today is Nick Everly from Hill Point LLC, the applicant and the developer for this project. Philip and staff have done a pretty good job of explaining what we're looking to do here today. It's really a change of a 2-story to 3-story and an increase in density. We have one access point off of Parkway Frontage Road, which is a DOT maintained roadway. And it's actually where we're tying into, it's a one-way road. So there's 2 lanes that are, one way in a eastward direction coming from the west. So we have requested a meeting with DOT. We have one coming up, pre-application meeting to talk about the access details there. But as Philip indicated, we had no impact to the roadway network, and we've completed a detailed traffic study already at this point at the zoning point here. So we have worked with staff to make a few changes in the site plan. The one you see before you today that Philip talked about is the latest and greatest. And it was also a result of some discussion we had with some of the members of the villas to our east. So some representatives that we talked to last week, and they had some input. I believe Philip's kind of talked about those, but most of the input related to kind of taking on our eastern property side, trying to move as much as we could the buildings a little bit further to the west. So we've done that. We expanded the stormwater pond in that area to provide a little bit more open space and to push the parking in the buildings a little bit further back. The building that's in the middle, it may be hard to pick up on from the site plan that's in your packet, but it was also requested that we move that a little bit further to the west, so we did that. And of course, the trash compactor, some other changes in site on the site. If you look at the difference in the 2 site plans, we increased the parking count number. But again, I think the focus here is that we're really just changing an existing PUD that allows multifamily, increasing the unit count and also the height of the buildings. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
I have a question. How close is this item in relation to item number 6 that we're going to be looking at? We're on the same roadway? Is that?
Item 6 should be, if that's down on Pipkin and, or on Yates Road, South Pipkin Road.
Oh, okay.
That's about
Parkway
4
Frontage
miles.
Road and Pipkin, no, it's on the same road. Pipkin Creek, Parkway Frontage.
Oh, that's about 2 miles to the west.
Pretty good distance, right? Yeah.
And what was the reasoning for you to increase from 2 stories to 3 stories?
Increasing the density is what it comes down to. So with this parcel, the size that it is, we have an MF12, and the land use and the zoning allows for higher density. So to make the project viable from our standpoint, we needed to increase the density. So it was enough area to make it work to have a clubhouse, a sizable clubhouse, enough parking, and enough units to still stay within what's allowed in the comp plan and what's allowed with the MF12 zoning. So.
And the current approval was, it was done in the early 90s, so it's almost 30 years old. And for whatever reason, it was never developed before. So it's been quite an amount of time has passed since the original approval was adopted.
Joe?
Typically, when we've seen some of these elevations, we get a view shed, particularly when we're going higher than 2 stories. Was that considered to be presented at this forum?
We had talked to staff about doing a view shed. I'm not sure we had enough time to throw one together, Nick. I know we're scrambling to try to see if we could put one together for the hearing. I'm just not. We talked to staff Thursday or Friday about that. I'm just not sure we had enough time.
We have requested analysis if they could provide that up.
Yeah, we certainly can bring one to the next hearing because staff had talked to us late last week about it. So we're actually started working on it. We just haven't had time to put that together. It takes a little bit of time. So yeah, it's a good question.
About pedestrian access within the parcel and connecting out to frontage, the frontage road, is there intent to provide that?
There will be. We'll have sidewalks within the project, like most multifamily projects do, but we'll have a sidewalk that runs out to our access road out to Parkway Frontage Road. Yes, sir.
As part of your traffic analysis, I understand the level of service probably wasn't affected. Currently, I think there's just a few traffic generators on that west side, I'd say, of the underpass road. Are there any concerns of putting additional traffic out there and just knowing the awkwardness of that frontage road where you've got a two-lane, two-way connecting to a one-way at that intersection just to the east of this location, and any changes within traffic that might generate some safety concerns?
Well, I know we met with staff and we have the pre-methodology meeting, so we meet and determine what the generators are, what the directional alignments are, where people are going to go, where they're coming from. So we ran through the whole methodology, did a detailed study, used up-to-date counts, get new counts if they're needed. So we feel confident there were no impacts shown from a detailed study. So it's not just a minor one where we try to calculate some minor trips. It was a detailed analysis that was done. And then keep in mind, to our west we have Lockheed, auto owners, and that part, we are actually boarding up to the DRI there from Oak Ridge, Drummond's DRI, and there's going to be future development, to our west with other roads interconnecting. So there's a lot to be that's planned on the books. It just hasn't happened to our west, but we feel confident that we've done the best we can with the rules that are set out to try to, do an accurate engineering study and anticipate what the impacts are going to be. So,
if I'm reading this and looking at it correctly, it seems to me that 100% of the inbound traffic is going to have to come from the intersection of Hardin and South Frontage Road. Is that correct?
that is, well, you could be coming up Hardin, right? If you're coming from Hardin heading northbound, you would turn right on the frontage road. Which is really, that's a large intersection, as you know, which is why you're asking the question, right? The Parkway and
Dangerous
Hardin.
intersection. I go through it several times a day.
Very large, busy intersection. But yes, we're on a one-way street, so we have no option. All of our traffic is going to be coming, just like it does for Lockheed, and Ottawa. It's going to have to come down.
What about access for emergency vehicles and stuff? I mean, that.
Yeah, we had contemplated that, but we had met with the fire department and discussed that. So we're going to be providing sprinklers for all the buildings, which you have to do, but the apartment buildings, but also the clubhouse. So we've already met with city staff, fire department, and worked through that. And we're on board with having the one access point to meet the standards.
I'd like to revisit what I asked about earlier about the density and the change in density. And you increased it. Are you saying that it's more feasible monetarily for you to add those units? Otherwise, if it was just retained at 2 stories, it wouldn't be monetarily feasible?
I think that's a fair characterization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My last question is about the increase in density as it relates to available schools in the area. Was that concurrency discussion had at this point?
We've submitted for non-binding school concurrency already and received back a non-binding approval on that.
Yes, we received that from the school board.
Are these 1 and 2 bedroom units, or?
They're actually all 2-bedroom units. Yes, sir. And we have 2 parking spaces per unit to meet the city requested parking number on that. So they're all 2-bedroom, which is a little unusual. A lot of times you see a 1, 2, and 3 mix. That's a good question, but in this case, they're all 2-bedroom units.
Any other questions from the board panel? Yes, you have one? Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Now's the time for public comment. If you'd like to come down and make a comment on this project.
Please state your name and your address for the record, sir.
Okay, my name is Dave Ramsey, and I live at 529 Lake Carillon Circle in Villas 3. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you as members of the Planning and Zoning Board. Again, I am Dave Ramsey, but I'm also president of Villas 3, and I will be speaking on behalf of the board and the residents to address the impact the apartment complex and especially the third level will have on Villas 3 and the community. Some residents, back up to the apartment project. But prior to this, as earlier stated, we did meet with Nick Everly from Hill Point LLC and Mark Wilson, the engineer from Kimberly Horn, to address our concerns with them. And they were very sincere and professional in listening and addressing some of our concerns. Again, some of our concerns that we had was the closeness of the buildings to Villas 3, and they agreed to move one building back 20 feet and to move another building to where part of the retention pond is located on the southeast side, and moving some of the retention area to the back of some of the homes in Villas 3 to help increase the buffer zone between us. They agreed to move the trash area away from our homes to the west end of their complex. They also agreed to put up a fence to help separate the properties, and we would ask that if they could even add some trees, landscaping there, that would be helpful as well. They removed from their original plan the need to use our private roadway, since it's not a city street, for their emergency vehicles. They agreed to do their part with the regular maintenance of Lake Carillon as to help keep it clean and free of trash and debris. And so we did appreciate their being sensitive to our concerns. We do still have an issue with the traffic because we do live there and we know what that does to the residents of Villas 3 due to the apartment complex and the added of 3 stories. It is hard for residents now entering and exiting our subdivision since Florida Avenue was reduced to 2 lanes, and drivers are now taking Old 37 to Hardin as an alternative route. This has become dangerous since 80% of our residents are seniors, as well as for those dropping children off at Resurrection Church, which is directly across from us. Those entering and exiting at times when people are going to work or coming home after work especially, is hard due to our entrances and exiting. And our entrance and exit faces each other, and this will be difficult for our residents to do that and the school due to the added traffic. Adding a 3rd level to the complex will only make this bad situation worse. So we do strongly oppose the 3 levels due to traffic.
Sure.
We will continue to work with the city and Mark and
Sir?
Nick.
Yeah, your time is up, if you can try and wrap it up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You can submit that written statement if you like.
Pardon?
If you like to submit that written statement into the record, you can.
Okay, I will. Okay.
Who do I give this to?
Sir.
You want to hand it to me, we'll,
Only had 1 line left.
Well, go ahead and finish.
Todd has it for you. Thanks, Todd.
Any other comments from the audience?
My name's Courtney Engler. I'm at 550 Lake Carillon Circle. I've never done any public speaking before, so this is a little bit nervous for me. The complex that they're trying to put in there, right now, a lot of the people that are along that edge, when they bought into that property, they thought that was a wetlands area that can never be built on. And although they're talking about a 20-foot buffer, right now they have almost probably 80 or 100-foot buffer. And then all those trees that they're looking at now, they'll all be gone. You know, they're going to be taking out all of those trees to build all that parking and all of those complexes. Now, this is a one-way street going down the parkway, and right now it's accessed by auto insurance, which just put one of their main offices in there, and Lockheed Martin, which has had offices there for a few years now. And I don't know, to the west of those buildings, there's also additional property that can be developed that'll be going on to that 2-lane, one-way street. and it comes to a section where it's just a three-way stop where they can go under the parkway to get to Hardin or Florida, or they'll go on and go around to up 37, which a lot of the traffic does. It goes up Old Road 37. And right where our entrance is and our exit, and also the Insurrection Church School, when they come and pick up all their kids, come out right at that same thing. You don't have a half a block from when you make that corner to come around and you have access. So you don't even see the cars really coming until they're right there turning the corner, and you got a half a block there. So all that extra traffic is significant. And, you know, when they talk about, oh, well, you were asking about, well, are you doing this because financially it's better? Yeah, of course it's financially better to put, you know, that many more units in. The zoning is for 152, and it'd be one thing if you're just asking for a few extra units or something, but they're not only going against the zoning on the number of units, they're going against the zoning on the 3 stories. So if you took out the 3 stories and you only went 2 stories, you'd still be doing almost 30% more than what the zoning allows for. 30% more than what the zoning allows for with 2 stories. Now with 3 stories, you're almost at 90%, or you are at 90% more than what the zoning. So that's almost double the amount. I mean, isn't this kind of ridiculous to double the amount and give them 3 stories? All these things just seem a little bit too much. And for, you know, a company's profit, it just doesn't seem right. And all those other people, it'll devalue all of our values in our neighborhood, because just from those bands that go up to that they're done. I'm sorry. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment?
Hello, I'm Tony Kirshner, and this is my wife Gina. We're currently at 535 Lake Carillon Circle. We haven't been there very long, and the whole reason that we bought that property is our property backs up to those woods. And that was an important factor in us determining to buy there. We downsized, our kids are gone, and we went through that whole process. But so we're in opposition, not to the project, but to the extent of the project, to completely take away those woods and to put 3-story. There can be a buffer there, but 45 feet in the air buildings is pretty oppressive for our backyard view, and we just wanted to state opposition to that. Excuse me. And in addition, as Courtney was talking about, the traffic studies that were done all seem to point to everybody turning under Underpass Road and either traveling east or west on Parkway Frontage Road on the other side, without any consideration for all that traffic that's going to continue down Parkway Frontage Road and make that corner, which is a dangerous corner, and all that traffic is funneled through there. Now, we've seen tremendous increases from there because of the work that they've been doing on the next road over. So that just shows us what's going to happen when all this additional use for vehicles is added. So we just wanted to state our opposition to that, and so be it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment?
Hi, my name is Tracy Bush. I live at 5332 Song Sparrow Court. I'm actually here for the other issue on Pitkin, but I work at Lockheed Martin, so I have a little bit of a different perspective. We're all working from home right now, and eventually we're going to go back to work, and the traffic will pick up. And I don't know when the traffic studies were done, but we've been working from home since, you know, March of 2020. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Richard Buth. I live at 544 Lake Mystic, which is part of the Villas 3 complex. We talk about the traffic coming down to that corner. I've lived in the area 20 years. There's been 5 accidents at that corner. 3 people have been killed. on that corner making to the right. When you come out of this complex that's being proposed, it's a one-way traffic. When they come down to that corner, it's really going to be a lot of traffic. And like I said, our entrance is only about a half a block from that corner. So getting out of there even right now is a problem. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments? Any other questions or comments from the board?
We have another gentleman here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just speak.
Good morning. My name's Joe Malave. I live at 568 Mystic Lane. My concern is giving them extra units. If you look at the development to the corner where, top right corner, right there is where we have our recreation area. You add another building, I don't know what you mean by a buffer. I don't know if it's a wall, if it's going to be trees, whatever you're going to do there to block that development from our development. If you go 3 stories high and that development is right there, our swimming pool, our development area, our recreation area is right there. It's not going to be pleasant for anybody to go swimming and you look and somebody from the apartment building is staring down at us if you put 3 floors on there. You know, and another problem with that is the traffic. You guys are saying there's not a lot of flow in that traffic. There is during rush hour, morning, evenings, school hours through there. With all the stuff that's going down on Pippin, traffic is horrible over there. Another concern is when that development starts coming in. Where is that traffic? That traffic is going to be horrible because you're going to have a lot of equipment being dropped off. If you only got 1 entrance there, that means Parkway is going to be very, very bad in traffic until that development is built. And I'm hoping that you guys don't allow those extra units. I think, like Corey was saying, you know, 80% is pretty good for them, you know. And another thing is, you know, a lot of people are saying that there's a shortage of apartments. It's not a shortage of apartments. They don't want to lower their rents. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Any other public comment on this project?
I'll try to take a moment to maybe just answer a few questions, and maybe I'm not sure what to say about traffic. I feel like maybe I would turn that one over to Chuck and let Chuck expand on that the city develops rules and procedures, and there's technical standards on how you do transportation studies. We follow those rules, so maybe I can let maybe Chuck speak to that maybe a little bit more eloquently than I can, and can maybe defend the process and what goes on there and the science behind it. But just to reiterate that it is a multifamily 12 zoning, and it's a residential medium, so we're just staying within the bounds of what's allowed based on the land use and what the zoning is. And maybe don't lose focus. I don't know if Philip could maybe speak to this as well, but adjacent to our property to our south, there's another PUD, and there's higher density that's allowed, and multifamily, I believe, is allowed to our south, and the DRI, the PUD, that's to our south. So not to our east, but to our south behind Lockheed. There's future development of the business park and multifamily. Commercial uses are going to be coming on board there. So to our south, we're bordering up to what's going to be, you know, more intense development in the future. So, thank you.
And I'll just say that from a traffic standpoint, in the past, we have looked at the Underpass Road, Parkway Frontage Road intersection related to the Oak Ridge DRI. It didn't show the need for signalization or any particular issues from a congestion or an operation standpoint at that particular location. What we will do is we'll go and take a look at crash data from our traffic operations division to see what might be occurring there at the corner. Typical traffic studies don't get into that level of detail related to crashes on the outside of the study area, and so we'll take a look at that. But in terms of capacity, you know, in terms of what we've seen in the area based on other studies and based on this one, we do have capacity that can be absorbed by this project. But we do want to make sure and take a look at the crashes, and if there's something that's popping up that would be an issue, we want to make sure that that's addressed, and so we will look into that.
I have a question about that. Was that study done before the change in traffic pattern going east on Parkway Frontage Road and then making it into a 3 northbound turn lane onto Hardin? Because now there's only 1 lane to go straight through.
Correct. The analysis was done based on the current configuration at the Hardin intersection. And frankly, that's where most of the movements at that intersection was that left turn. So having a triple left has certainly helped with the overall capacity of that intersection. But
not necessarily for those of us going straight all the time. The other question I have is, at the bottom of the bottom right-hand corner, how much is the buffer between that one house and that black line? What is that buffer? How far is that?
Should it's 20 feet.
20 feet. And do you guys know how big this building is? Or how big this room is? Long? Okay.
The code would require, for the buffering, minimum type A buffer that would be consist of either a 6-foot-high view blockage fence or wall and a 7.5-foot wide landscape strip consisting of a minimum of 4 B type trees per 100 feet of length and a hedge. So, the developer could potentially enhance that buffer there. I know they will have to do tree mitigation as part of the site plan review process. I'm not sure if they've done a tree survey yet, so there may be an opportunity to further enhance that buffer.
I'm just trying to get an idea of what 20 feet looks like from the back of someone's house to the beginning of
This is about
the
20
building.
foot.
Yeah.
This is about 20 foot.
Yeah.
I do have a comment with that turn along frontage road, like right by Resurrection. Since it's going to come before us again next month for our final decision, I was wondering if there's like any improvements that can be made, because it is quite busy now and it is quite treacherous, and I was just wondering if there's any way that that area can be improved, not only if this development is approved, but for just the future.
I know over the years that there's been additional signing, additional striping. There's been an additional guardrail that's been established there at the end of the frontage road. I'll check to see if there's anything else we might be able to do from that standpoint. I'll also check to see if lighting might be an option. The crashes are one thing, but when are the crashes occurring? What is causing the crashes? And if it's something that's happening at night because people are surprised by that 90-degree turn, perhaps there's some additional lighting that can be added. I know there is street lighting out there, but is it something that meets today's standard? And we'll check into that with Lakeland Electric. Other than that, this is one of those locations where I'm not sure what other options we have, other than the lighting, the striping, the signage, and just kind of further alerting motorists that, by the way, this road is basically
coming. What is the speed limit?
The speed limit, I believe, is at that point, it's, I think, 35. It is 45
30.
As you're coming down the frontage road, but then it drops once you get past underpass. Once you get into the turn, there's an advisory speed. I think it's a 10-mile-an-hour advisory speed, which that's an advisory speed. So it does start to step down as you get closer to that turn.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board?
I just had a comment. It appears that that 20 foot from Villas 3 abuts a retention pond and parking facilities. So the actual buildings are significantly further away from that backyard of the Villas 3 units there.
That would be approximately 100 feet would be the closest building.
Okay, yeah. So it's not like the buildings are right up against the backyards.
And they are oriented, the two northern ones are oriented so they're not facing east. You would have the end caps there. And the one that is oriented north-south, that would be even further, probably 160, 170 feet to the west.
I know that some other ones that have come before the board have gone to eliminating windows on the end to accommodate some concerns from overlooking the pool or something like that. Is that something that could be considered as part of this?
It wasn't windows, it was balconies on that mosaic project at their Yates and Pipkin. So where it was adjacent to those single-family residences, they eliminated the balconies, but they still have windows.
In terms of the design of this building, I'll ask the applicant, would there be windows on those end caps?
And then just, I would recommend an enhanced buffer along those residences.
Yeah, we'll certainly work with the applicant on that. But they're showing 20 feet. They do have an able to enhance that, probably do a double row of trees there, something that would further mitigate the impacts.
I have a question for city staff, I guess. I've lost count of how many apartment complexes we've looked at over the last 12 or 15 months. Do you have any notion of what the deficit is in apartment housing in the city?
In terms of multifamily, I think probably the best barometer is what we've seen in terms of rent increases. You know, and the rents have, depending on which part of town you're in, they've almost doubled. And so based on that, and the vacancy rates are extremely low at this point, I think that's probably more indicative of some shortage in the multifamily market. In terms of unit count, it's really hard to tell because, you know, of course, we're also in the greater kind of Lakeland, Polk County, you know, development doesn't stop at the city boundaries. So I think what we've been relying on is the extremely low vacancy rates, the very high rent and the continued rent increases. You know, and frankly, I think a lot of it too, you know, in Southwest Lakeland is, you know, we're seeing development closer to the employment centers like Geico, closer to employment centers and transmission facilities like the Polk Parkway. So that's why Lakeside Preserve, this site, you know, I mean, we're starting to see that kind of that infill that the comprehensive plan has anticipated in terms of additional unit types, not just single family. So, I mean, the comprehensive plan is really set up to encourage more multifamily development, and certainly that had been a goal of the commission for a long time, because up until 2 years ago, we had gone almost a decade. I think Ada Palms was the only multifamily development that we'd had in about a decade. And so I think there's some catch up that's happening at this point in time. You know, and it's probably a function of land costs and other factors too, that we're just starting to see more multifamily product coming into Lakeland as a maturing urbanized area than perhaps had been traditionally the case.
There's also the lag, even once you obtain the entitlements, the actual development time, the site plan review, permitting, construction, you're probably looking at least 18 to 24 months before they're actually able to get their CO. So this whole increase in rent probably started in the last year and a half. So it's going to take some time for the market to catch up and address that demand.
Does this, in the comprehensive plan, address the future walkability and you know, more pedestrian-friendly or bike-friendly areas that you've been talking about in the comprehensive plan? Because this location just doesn't seem like it fits.
It does, and I would say that, you know, and I think this was alluded to a little bit earlier, is, you know, you've got the Oak Ridge Development of Regional Impact just to the west, and with that we would have continued increase in retail employment in that southeast corner of the Hardin Parkway Frontage Road intersection. So there's additional development that's certainly expected over time that would kind of support this use and vice versa. You know, in terms of the civic design, I mean, that's something that, you know, is still being worked out with the applicant. But in terms of multifamily in general in this area, there are other uses that would complement and would still continue to support the comprehensive plan from a walkability and connectivity standpoint. I mean, I will say that you know, and this is an issue we have all along the parkway, is that the frontage road and being the one-way configuration does create a challenge for us on a number of fronts, and that's something that, you know, we continue to try to address. But yeah, I think this is unique in that we do have such a long run of a one-way frontage road system, you know, and we deal with that the best that we can. From a capacity standpoint, the frontage roads probably have the highest capacity of any road in the city. Where we need to dig into more detail is just what does that relate in terms of crashes and other things that we would need to address as part of this particular development approval.
And I'll add also from a land use perspective, you have to remember, I mean, this is an area that currently has entitlements that were done probably 30 years ago. And then the Butts residential development that was done in the early 80s. So I believe that's when the Villas 3 was developed there. So that pattern has already been set there. And they do have entitlements for multifamily currently. Obviously, I think we would prefer maybe Class A office, but right now there's almost no demand for that in the market. So it'd be hard to push that on the property owner, given the history of the property and the land use pattern.
I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's already a sidewalk down Frontage Road there also.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, we would have some connection to the Villas 3, but obviously that's not going to be something they're going to want through there.
Well, and you mentioned Class A office, and that brings its own challenges because you have a lot more condensed, like a start and stop time versus an apartment building where it fluctuates. Not everybody works an 8 to 5 job.
And frankly, that was an issue or concern, when auto owners went in next to Lockheed Martin, is having two office complexes that mirrored each other with the same inbound, outbound patterns. And of course, COVID changed the dynamic for some period of time, so having residential in around that employment overall gets us a better balance. It's just working out the details, given the Parkway frontage road and given the access. I mean, that's where DOT, I think they're going to play a key role in all of this, and the pre-application meeting and that permitting process is going to be important because that's going to address a lot of the specific issues that, sounds like we're hearing in the immediate section along Southside Frontage Road and then the driveway, particularly because of its proximity to Lockheed Martin next door.
Any other questions, any other comments? Okay, the staff will be considering all the comments that have been made here today, all the questions raised, and come back to us at our next meeting, I assume, with any resolution that you have. Thank everybody for their comments and suggestions.
We have our homework.
Yes, you do. Okay.
Item 3, change in land use from residential low to residential medium on approximately 25.92 acres. A change in land use from neighborhood activity center to residential medium on approximately 3.81 acres. And a major modification of plan unit development zoning for Town Park Estates, Ordinance 4471 as amended, to allow a 4-story multifamily residential development with a maximum of 356 dwelling units on 29.73 acres located south of Town Park Boulevard and west of Yates Road. Owner, English Creek LLC, applicant Sarah Case, Next Level Planning Permitting.
Hi, good morning. For the record again, Philip Scaris, Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. This is part 2 of our public hearing phase in this case. Last month, you heard we discussed the land use amendments from a residential low category and a neighborhood activity center to residential medium category, and we just discussed the densities and everything last month. This month, we're discussing the proposed PUD plan unit development site plan. So the applicant has brought forth a specific site plan to accompany this request. So there's land use amendments with this, again, from residential low and neighborhood activity center to residential medium, which would allow up to 12 units per acre. And then that is the LUS 21007 component, and then there's the PUD 21023 component, which we're discussing today, which is the site plan. And we'll just go back and discuss the location again. This is located on primarily on Yates Road, just south of Town Park Boulevard, right here. This is subject property. This is Town Park Boulevard. This little area right here is where the neighborhood activity center is. It was a remnant of the previous neighborhood activity center that was changed previously with the Mosaic multifamily development. The road went around an isolated wetland there, so there was a remnant of neighborhood activity center left over. And then the majority of it here is residential low, but the PUD will be associated to the this entire parcel. Right now, this site is within the Town Park PUD, but it was designated as future institutional use. And I think that was a long time ago when this was adopted. It was, I think, meant to be for our church or some type of an institutional use. That's the only thing I can think of it, but it wasn't specific. It just said future institutional use in the PUD. So and it is adjacent to, there's wetlands on site, discussed last week. But this is the proposed site plan, and I'll stop here, and the applicant's going to go into further detail. What they're proposing are 3 4-story structures. This one and this one will have approximately 119 units in each one, and then this one in the middle will have 118. Correct me, refresh my memory, 356? Yes, 356 dwelling units, I apologize. Didn't have it written down. 356 dwelling units at a 12 dwelling unit per acre density. These is a 4-story, 50-foot high structure, and they're all 1 bedroom. And then,
1 bedroom?
they're all 1 bedroom. There were, again, we had mentioned that there were wetlands on the site. So that acts as a buffer between the units and the single family structures on Town Park. And they're showing an on-site amenity here. Just go through the slides. Again, this is from the county's wetland database. This is showing the on-site wetlands, and this would be the uplands. There's about 10, 11 acres of uplands on here. The rest is within the wetland, as you can see that the applicant had left undeveloped here and here. And this is the same slides I showed last week for the land use. This is looking south on Yates Road. You see there currently, this is within the functional improvement area of the West Pipkin Road improvements, so there's some construction on Yates Road occurring as well. This is looking southeast on Yates, and across here you have the single family structures. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's Forest Park. Forest, yeah, so there is a residential subdivision within unincorporated Polk County. And this is just looking further southeast on Yates Road. And this is looking north on Yates. You see the single family development here. And you see West Pipkin off in the distance there. This is looking southeast on Town Park Boulevard, looking into the site. Again, it's a heavily wooded site. There's really not much to see as far as the site itself. And really, it's kind of take pictures in the site, you're just looking at trees. And this is just an overall map just to show you what the land uses around the site. Again, Town Park is single family. This is the Mosaic multifamily development that was recently approved by the City Commission. Then you have single family uses here that are in unincorporated Polk County, but still single family uses nonetheless. We have to be concerned about that. And then importantly, Bruce Wagner Elementary School is located right here. During the rezoning of the Mosaic site multifamily, there was, the school board had indicated that there were capacity issues at Bruce Wagner. And so we would have the same concerns here with this development as well. And when we look at the adjacent roadway network, as you know, West Pipkin and functional area of Yates are being reconstructed. We have not received a transportation analysis to really evaluate this request for its impacts to the local roadway network. So as we come before you today, I really can't tell you how this would impact. So maybe the applicant has some further information on that. But with that said, the applicant has their own PowerPoint, and I will hand it over to her, and I'll get that.
Good evening, good morning. For the record, Sarah Case, Next Level Planning and Permitting, 6700 South Florida Avenue, that is in Lakeland. And with me today is John McVeigh that will be co-presenting. And I do have a couple additional points to make in addition to Philip's presentation to you. Again, this is our proposed site plan for the PUD. We have an application in-house to vacate the PUD that was Town Park, and Philip touched on the fact that there, on some of the PDs, I believe Town Park was modified maybe 3 times, and over the course of the years, there were notes on those site plans that said future institutional. However, there was no institutional land use or zoning assigned to that. It was the NAC to the north and RL. So we're requesting a modification for the smaller portion of NAC and RL to all RM, and then the PUD zoning to allow this. We're showing, as Philip mentioned, the 3 buildings, 4 stories. And what's interesting with this, we're very aware of the large environmental areas known as wetlands and floodplain. And what we're proposing, and I'll get into the site data in the next slide, but 84% of the site that you see here is wetlands and open space. So only 16% would be impervious. We included parking, building, footprint, sidewalks, and the amenity area in that 16% impervious number. We're showing a 2,000 square foot clubhouse rec center and a little boardwalk type pier. It would not be for motorized water boats, anything like that. It would be more just a place to walk out and observe the environmental areas. So here's some additional site data. The 1-bedroom apartments will be a minimum of 600 square feet. And again, the wetlands and the open space areas, they equal 84%. We're requesting the RM and actually PD under the MF12. So I thought it was very important to show you some distances between our neighbors to the east and our 3 buildings. I know it came up to the project that was just approved to the north of us at the intersection of Yates and West Pipkin. And in their conditions, it was recommended, or I think the condition said a minimum of 100-foot distance between the nearest residents and their buildings proposed. So for building 1, you can see on the screen, we're 337 feet from our property line, which does not include the 25-foot wetland buffer that's dashed adjacent to them further to the west. So there's actually more than the distances that we're showing there. The 337, the 565 between building 2 and our property line, and then the 528 to the south for building 3. And here's just kind of a better, closer look at this. So that area of Town Park Estates, it's just one, like a peninsula of homes. Their entire distance is 280 feet. They've got a buffer included on their property. The dark line is our property line, and within that is a 25-foot buffer to our west property line, and then it appears a minimum of 25 feet and more increased. To the left is the FEMA map, just in accordance with resources that we have, and we actually had our environmentalist, Horner Environmental, go out on site and delineate that line for us. So the buildable area that we have is in between the turquoise, the wetland node to the north, and then again the very large wetland to the south and southwest. So in that buildable area is where we're showing any kind of improvements. I'm going to ask John to come up and mention some of the existing vegetation, traffic analysis, and I had a discussion with one of the residents yesterday, and they were interested in the price point. So, John, if you want to come and speak to that. Excuse me.
Good morning, Board. I'm John McVeigh, 6700 South Florida Avenue, Lakeland, Florida. Next level planning and permitting. In designing this site and the proposed site, we have basically tried to minimize the impact on all the surrounding residential. If you'll notice on the site plan, the buildings are set as far away from Yates Road as possible, up against the wetland buffer line, and also as far away from Town Park Boulevard from the north. And the area to the west and southwest of the buildings, that is a wooded wetland area. It has water oaks, sweet gums, some water maples. It has some cypress trees. So, and those range probably in height from 12 feet to maybe 30, 35 feet, depending on what it is. So the sight line from the residences to the west will be basically, if they see anything at all, it may be some rooftops to the existing buildings and all. Traffic analysis, we haven't performed that yet. One of the reasons is that there was one that performed on the north side, I think came in last month, the month before last. Our analysis is waiting on a review of that one, and also getting with Chuck at the city to work out the methodology of how they want it done, and also what it's going to be, what the situation for the traffic is going to be once the Pipkin Road and the Yates Road alignment and widening is going to be completed. Soils are pretty much the same as the whole area there. You've got probably a water table of about 2 feet, so the site will probably need some fill put on it. School concurrency, the elementary school to the southeast, I think has capacity. The school board bought a site about a half a mile south on Yates Road several years ago to build a high school, but they apparently have some problems with funding because of some wetland creeks and stuff running through it. So I don't know where that stands, but I think they're looking at building a new high school and middle school somewhere in that area. Where, we have no idea. The city has, I think, purchased about 80 acres to the west, about a half mile down Pipkin, to put a city regional park in. Is that correct, Chuck?
100 and I think it was 102 acres.
102
for
acres,
city
yeah.
Park that was closed off.
Now, I think that's in the design stage now.
A master plan's under development as we speak.
Okay. And all. So there's a lot of activity in that area. There's a lot of need for blue collar type rental for a lot of the warehousing and stuff along County Road, and the expansion of Pipkin is going to bring more development along that area and out in that area, maybe in the English Creek area to the north by the airport. So anyway, this apartment project is basically designed to fill the need of working class. It's not going to be any government subsidized. It's all private money, private funded. But right now in Lakeland, I think capacity is probably over 99% on all the apartments in the city of Lakeland and in Polk County, South Lakeland. We have one of our friends of mine just moved into town from New York, and it took him 5 weeks to find an apartment to rent. You know, and it's a single person, and they finally got a 3-bedroom because it was available when they only wanted a 1 or 2 bedroom. So the need is here, and I don't know if there's going to be any change. Lakeland is a growth area that is, as you know, between Winter Haven and Lake Orlando and Tampa, And the Lakeland One Haven area is one of the top 10 growth areas within the nation for single-family and multifamily residences. And Lakeland is starting to become more of a suburban area, you know, with passing the 100,000 and getting into a higher degree of development in most areas, you know, that we're used to in this area. So anyway, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
These are all rentals, is that what you're saying? These are all rental apartments?
They're all rental apartments.
Right. And the size of the apartments, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom?
No, they're going to all be, these are all designed as 1 bedroom. And it's
So they're 1-bedroom?
all 1 bedroom.
So you're not really looking at families coming in necessarily with children, is that correct?
No, no. It's mainly going to be for empty nesters or young adults, you know, without children.
And what is your projection on rental prices? Do you have any idea on that yet?
Well, they're trying to stay, from what they're telling us, they're trying to stay between $1,200 and $1,500, where everybody else is $1,500 to $2,000.
So the school situation wouldn't be an issue with yours?
Wouldn't be a big problem. There could be a few, but I don't think so with 1 bedrooms.
They have to be a very close family if they're all going to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know. They'd have to be very close.
I have a real quick question. The rendering is showing that as open water, but it isn't. It's like a wooded wetland.
It's a wooded wetlands, and that's not really a pier. It's going to be a raised boardwalk permitted through SwiftMud and DEP to give them access to some environmental area.
My question is, if you limited it to 3 stories, how many parking spaces less would you need?
How many parking spaces less would you need?
If it was only 3 stories?
25% less, because it's 25% less units.
Since it's 4-story, will there be elevators in the buildings?
Yes, elevators are required by the fire department and the
How many units
city.
is it to a building?
I'm sorry,
How many units to a building?
approximately 120 per building.
Just by comparison, I believe the one that went to the north recently, I believe they had 24 per building, so it's quite an increase as far as the concentration of units and the scale of massing per building. So that's something that's very unusual for Lakeland and Polk County.
Given some of the obvious environmental challenges, why this site? Why was this site chosen?
Why the site? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. When you have a site that has challenges to it, you need to be able to cluster and to go up in height in order to make it developable and feasible. And so a lot of times your multifamily sites are sites that have challenges to those, whether it be wetlands, whether it be setbacks or whatever, because you're trying to utilize the property to get the units so you don't create urban sprawl by putting if you start putting single family lots everywhere, it's more roads, it's more schools, it's more everything, all the facilities have to be more. And basically this is kind of an infill site because all around it is pretty much developed. There's 2 sites left here, the one to the north of the boulevard and the one south of the boulevard going into Town Park. So you put those, that's where you would want to increase your density in order to utilize the site. So the infrastructures are already there: water, sewer, traffic, roads, employment areas. All those are there. So you're kind of using those in order to create the need for additional multifamily.
Do you have any idea of the price range of the single family homes that already exist in that close by area?
The price range for single family homes?
Yeah, in that area.
Well, I don't know if you can buy a new single family home for under $300,000 anywhere in Lakeland or Polk County. now in today's market. I have no idea. Most of them are in the, if they are, they're the high 200s or the low 300s. And maybe, Chuck, you might be able to answer that better than.
No, I think that's what we've seen is tends to be over 300,000 in this area.
And that's one of the reasons apartments are so desirable now, is because of the cost of the single-family home and the cost of the land with inflation and with the growing pains that cities are experiencing. That's one of the reasons apartments really have a real strong bearing on the market right now.
Any other questions?
I do. I have a question. Maybe this question is for Matthew. If it was to stay at residential low, would they still be able to develop it just with a lesser amount of units?
They could do like a single-family attached townhomes as a transitional use there under the RL. RL would not allow multifamily to be mapped to it, so that they cannot do this type of intense, rental housing. That would not be allowed under the RL use for multifamily.
Any other questions?
Jared, I'm going to have to recuse myself on this. Does that preclude me from asking questions at this point?
Well, what's the basis of the recusal for?
Same one I had previous to the one to the north here. My firm's doing the roadway design. Concerned that if we put a condition on the approval for additional turn lanes or anything like that, it may generate work on my firm.
Well, I mean, typically if you have a conflict of interest, you recuse. You're required to recuse from the vote. If you've asked questions and things like that. I mean, I don't think that historically we've asked our board members to completely leave the room or anything like that. But I would just, caution that if you don't, I would caution against advocating or using your line of questions to advocate for a certain outcome.
Okay.
Do you have any questions you want to ask them under those conditions, Jeff?
Yeah, I guess if you could just discuss the access. Yeah, I see you've got access points both on Yates as well as Town Park. Is Town Park public, private? Have you had those conversations with Town Park at this point?
And Town Park is public, and we've certainly encouraged the applicant to work with the Town Park HOA, basically similar to what was done with the last development, to discuss access and other issues related to Town Park Boulevard itself.
In terms of compatibility, it seems like this is a increased density between single family to the west, single family to the east, and then lesser density to the north. Can you talk about how you see it as being compatible within this area?
Well, the residential or RL is to the west and to the east. To the north is RM, which is the same land use and density allowable. The PDs within those RLs and RMs limit the number of units depending on what the desire of the board and the commission is. So it's a transition from the next available land use from RL transitioning up is RM, and then from RM to RH, but then there's NAC on the corner. This is kind of an unusual area, but the adjacent land uses of RL, the next step up in the transition is RM. So it's, from that standpoint, it's compatible.
And just to clarify, the residential medium, it's not an entitlement. I mean, the actual entitlements through the zoning, and that's would be based on the environmental constraints, compatibility issues with adjacent land use districts. So applying RM to the entire property in itself would not be justification necessarily for what they're proposing.
Right.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm really excited to see developments come in with one-bedroom apartments, especially with elevators. I think it makes it, being one of the silver senior citizens around here, it makes it appealing to have a one-bedroom apartment that a couple, that they are not traversing 3 stories of steps to get into it. And I'm encouraged by the fact that it's one-bedroom apartments and 4 stories with elevators. I think that's something that's a need that really hasn't been filled at all.
And that's what the developers were looking at, the need for that, the need for one bedrooms, because there are very few one bedrooms. Yeah. You've got to rent and pay extra for a 2-bedroom or extra for a 3-bedroom. And with going 4 stories, you're forced to put in an elevator. So you not only have elevators, you have stairs. So if you want to take the stairs, you can, or you can take the elevators.
I mean, there's a lot of us out there that would like to downsize and have the ability to have an elevator and aren't ready to go into assisted living.
Right.
And I think this is something that's needed in our community. I think it's wonderful that we build housing and we build apartments for the workforce, but we also need to consider not only are there families that need a place to live, but there's singles and there's couples and there's the elderly.
And just to clarify, this is being proposed as market rate. Multifamily would not be any type of multifamily for the elderly, so it would not be age restricted. And so initially it would allow for, other demographics to come in there.
But it would be appealing to those who want to rent something and, have not, have the ability to have an elevator so they aren't using the stairways. Most of these places are 3-story and it limits anybody.
Yes, I guess from our experiences, what we see is those tend to be age-restricted communities, what you're describing. And that's what I'm to clarify, this is not going to be that type of product.
Exactly.
I have another question. Is it possible to move that pier onto the other side of that building so it's more accessible to the far end of the one at the top?
Well, we could put it, you mean to the west of the building instead of the south?
Well, yeah, just on top, in between those 2 buildings instead of at the
Oh, we
very,
could put
very
it
end.
anywhere. We could actually, we just show representation. We can actually come out there, go around and come in between one of the buildings and have a longer, boardwalk. That was just showing what we were intending to do, was put some type of boardwalk within that wetland area permitted. It has to be a certain height above the wetlands, and it has to be a certain gapping between the boards for the sunlight to come through, not to kill vegetation below. There's a lot of different things there, so it's representational. We could have it coming out between buildings 1 and 2, which would be on the north side, and winding through the wetlands and coming into the west side of the clubhouse.
It just seems like it would be more accessible to everyone in the...
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, but this was just showing you what the intent was on having something within those wetlands for the people to enjoy the wetlands. And let me go back to one thing. Yes, they're 4-story instead of 3-story, but one of the reasons that we were looking at 4-story here to have less buildings, number 1, but number 2 is there's such a distance between the houses on the west side with the height of the wetlands and the height of the trees over that 400 to 600 foot area that the buildings are probably not even going to be noticeable. I wouldn't think. I haven't gone there and looked, but if you think about line of sight, it's 600 feet. You're looking over trees. It's hard to.
Did you perform any type of viewshed analysis to actually confirm that, sir?
Do what?
Did you perform any type of viewshed analysis to confirm the visibility from the single family in Town Park?
No, we can. We didn't do that. We'd have to probably go over on the road within Town Park and look at the analysis, do a vertical angle over the trees maybe, and then calculate where the roof would be. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that can be done, you know.
Have you done any environmental studies as far as if there are any endangered species displacement?
We've done wetlands location. We've done walkthroughs as far as gopher tortoises, you know, those kind of things. Which
And
is what's
walkthroughs done by you or an environmental
by an
company?
environmentalist. You know, and you saw on one of the slides, it was Horner Environmental out of Lutz. As far as doing a detailed, that will be required once we go into final permitting or prior to final permitting. But the only thing that could possibly be there that I know of I don't think there's any bald eagles that doesn't show up on the bald eagle list. Maybe some gopher tortoises, but the water table's fairly high, so I don't know if they would be there or not. And then the regular wetland species, which will be in the wetlands. And we propose no impact within the wetlands.
Any other questions from the board? Does anyone out in the public have any comments or questions to make?
Thank you.
All right, well, my name's Steve Geller. I'm going to be real quick because we have a laundry list of why this is not going to work. I'm going to yield most of my time to my colleague, Chris.
Can you give your
Chuck,
name, sir?
if you
Can you
could.
give your name and address, please?
I'm sorry?
Name and address.
My name is Steve Geller. I live on Town Park Boulevard.
What's your address, sir?
3536. Chuck, if you can, get in touch with me so we can have that meeting that we previously discussed.
Exactly.
We have a laundry list of things that need to be discussed. I'm going to yield my time to Chris on the board of directors so he can go over all the reasons why this project won't work. And on a side note, the home values are upper 3s, lower 4s, not the 2s, as indicated. And there are eagle nestings and a lot of other environmental concerns as well. But thanks for your time, Chuck. Look forward to speaking with you. And Chris, take over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Masterson. I live at 5341 Songspur Court, Town Park Estates. I come before you today not only as a resident of Town Park Estates, but also as representation of the Homeowner Association for Phase 1. I want to go through several elements in regards to the project. Per the City Comprehensive Plan, it says future land map view 6 is the single most influential component to illustrate the desired patterns of land use. The location of future land use on the future land map view 6 has been given consideration to natural land development limitations of significant natural, archaeological, and historic resources will be protected from incompatible developments through the use of the future land map view 6. And the following are the objectives and policies of this comprehensive plan. Compatibility. City Commission shall enact a PUD zoning only after making determination that proposed use to the density or intensity of use are consistent with the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan and are compatible with surrounding land use. Now, this project is not compatible. I watched the meeting that was held on the 15th of March where they said that this is a good transition from residential high to the north to residential low to the south. I don't see how you transition from 252 units to the north to 356 to single-family homes. That's not a transition, not by any means. Is that a transition? Now, per the Land Development Code 2.2.3.1, single-family districts. It is the intent of the single-family districts to provide single-family detached residential development at a variety of densities and lot sizes that are consistent with the existing and desirable future land pattern developed in the city. Provision is made for a variety of residential densities in order to accommodate different residential preferences. The use protects single-family detached residence developments from the encroachment of incompatible land uses. At the same time, provision is made for a limited number of appropriate non-residential uses, which was why the one parcel was zoned as neighborhood activity center. to put a small shopping plaza should the need arise. Now, per the land map 6, the only thing that's listed on there other than single-family use in that entire area was the corner that Mosaic took. Now, that was zoned from residential or neighborhood activity center to residential high. I've looked at all the land map uses, and like I said, there's nothing around there. I mean, this is a 10-year plan put together from the city. Nowhere on here in our area does it show residential medium, residential high, or anything of the like. Now, per the building code, it says that maximum heights within the suburban neighborhood are not to exceed 40 feet. How are you going to allow a 4-story building 50 foot high?
Got to wrap it up, sir. Your time is.
Well, I'm using up his time, and now I'm going to start my time.
Okay.
Thank you. So, now also per the comprehensive plan, policy FLU 1.140, floodplain areas and transfer densities, which is virtually the same as the FLU 1.14N wetland areas transfer densities. It states, development shall cluster in the non-floodplain portion of the property. Transfer of density shall be allowed for up to 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres of contiguous non-floodplain areas under the same ownership and control. Well, they don't have a total of 20 acres of wetlands, therefore they can't add 1 additional unit. So you can only go based off of the developable area that they have. If 84% of that area is wetlands, they have 29.73 acres. That gives them an area that they could develop on of 132 units out of the developable area that they can build on. They're wanting to take the entire capacity of the area that they're buying and stack it for 356. That's not compatible. Medium densities units are 5.01 to 12 units per acre, contingent upon natural and physical limitations of proposed development sites. Also, per the comprehensive plan, says continue to develop and implement policies which will discourage disruption of neighborhoods by increased traffic. Permitted future development will not result in the deterioration of levels of service of traffic situated below an acceptable level as adopted through the traffic circulation element of the comprehensive plan. Now, a traffic study was done by Mosaic, which was done on August 25th of 2021. And per that information right there, we had a peak flow rate on Town Park Boulevard of 770 vehicles an hour. 753 in the PM hours. Now, that puts us on a two-lane undivided road in between a C and a D. Mosaic estimated out of their 252 units that they were going to have a total of 1,372 daily trips during the weekdays for 252 units. Now, you put 356 units, if I go by the same math, that tells me 1,939 trips on a daily basis in and out of there. Doesn't work. Now, as far as schooling, Bruce Wagner, I've done a public records request, from the school board. Bruce Wagner currently has an enrollment of 937 kids in it. That's just for our surrounding area. Kids in our school, the middle school kids, are being shipped all the way out to the north side to Sleepy Hill. That's over 30 minutes, one way. Doesn't matter which route you take, it's 30 minutes for our kids to have to go out there. Now, whenever they just, I think it was a little over a month ago, whenever they talked about the Lake Marion project, they estimated 11 kids were going to be going to Lakeland Highlands Middle School. How many kids are going out of 356?
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to the rest of my colleagues here. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? General audience.
Tracy Bush, 5332 Songsboro Court. So just the traffic. So there's a gas station, there's Forest Brook. I'm sorry, is that the right neighborhood? No one ever talked about Forest Brook, but these apartments are an encroachment on their neighborhood, and I don't even live there. You got that neighborhood, you got our neighborhood, you got the apartments, and then they're gonna build something else in the corner where the apartments are. That doesn't work. There's no room for a light. The light, I don't even know what the span is, but you can't put another light there. It's not gonna work. Safety, more population, more crime. What's Lakeland gonna do about that? I'm a single person in my house. Now I might be scared to live in my house. Noise pollution, it's already getting worse. During the day, I work from home because of COVID. All I hear is cars and radio. It's gonna be worse. What are you gonna do about that? And I don't know what your desired income is for a one-bedroom and who your demographic is. I understand the seniors need a place to live, but what is your demographic for non-seniors? Is it, what's your median income that you're looking for? That would be good to answer at some point. I think that's all my notes. I can't read my handwriting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Linda Fairbanks. I live at 5352 Song Sparrow Drive. I'm near the cul-de-sac. We're on the south side of it. I'm going to disagree with the gentleman about the height of the trees. I back up and all of my neighbors back up to this complex. There are two-story buildings or houses on our side of the street, and both of them are higher than the tree lines. If you build a 4-story apartment building, I will lose all privacy as well as all of my neighbors of our backyard because the trees are not 40, 50 feet. I'm also at where the smallest area of the blue is, and during the winter, this winter, I could see the school. I could see the road. So you can see through the trees. They lose all of their leaves because they're shrubs. They may be named shrubs, but I will lose all privacy again, as well as all my neighbors. But there are eagles in our neighborhood, bald eagles. There are turtles, tortoises. I believe there was a gator in our backyard last night. But it is full of birds in this area that they're talking about taking down. But again, 4 stories would lose all privacy, not only on our side, but on the neighbors on the other side of the street in the county. So even a 3-story would do the same thing. They would be able to see directly into my house, into my backyard, because the trees are not as high as indicated, and even the length coming down at an angle, it would be perfect for that top story to rob me of all my privacy. So, thank you.
Yes. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Good morning. I'm Diana Williams. I live at 5353 Song Sparrow Court, Lakeland, Florida. I'm opposed to 4 stories because everything she said is correct. I live on the back of a preserve that is behind my house. I'm on the cul-de-sac almost across the street from where she is. And we have a big reserve back there, and we also have a retention pond or whatever you want to call it. And we do have eagles, and we have gopher turtles, and we have raccoons, we have possums, we have sandhill cranes that go back there and lay their nests, because every year there's always a pair, and they've got another new baby, 1 or 2, and I know they're protected. Some of the other birds and things are not. We've got rabbits and all kind of stuff, because they all come and eat a bird feeder. But anyway, when it falls on the ground. I'm concerned about the traffic. Even though we are a cul-de-sac, we have a lot of people that come in off the side entrance, and they don't know the neighborhood, and they'll think it's a three-way street, so they'll come down, so we deal with that, and the teenagers. But if you put apartment houses there, my one question is, if they're 1 bedroom, is there a capacity limit on the number of people that can live in a 1-bedroom apartment? Because sometimes, I used to have apartments, and you'd say the limit would be 2, 3, or 4, and you go over there, and there'd be a whole family that's moved in, 6, 7, 8 people. So I don't know how you control and monitor that. I could evict them, but that's beside the point. Another concern that I have is if they're going to have a street coming out of where all those apartments, condos, whatever you want to call them, are, and you've got one entrance going out on that 2-lane road now, which is already a mess because of the all the construction that's going on. And yes, the high school is going to be down past the elementary school when the Polk County School Board, whom I used to work for, can come up with the rest of the money. But anyway, if they're going to be able to turn left and come in to the subdivision per se behind their buffer that they've got up there, which is more dry than wet, by the way, that's going to put a lot more traffic in the neighborhood, even going out the other exit further down that would be going out on the road that's out there. So, those are just some of my concerns as being a homeowner. I live by myself, so, I'd like to see us put a gated gate up with a little security with a security guard or somebody put the card in and it opens the gate. But if you're going to put a street from there into there without having to go out that way to go what I would call their back way to get back out on the other main road, Drain Field or whatever one's the backside of the airport. There are things that we have to consider within the neighborhood too for safety. And we do have a lot of older people that live in the neighborhood. And we do have a lot of families too because the schools are there. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a comment?
Michael O'Neill. I live on 5306 Yates Road. My problem is I live right in front of that where they're facing. I'm on Yates Road, so I'll be facing the apartments. That's what I'm looking at, right across my street. So the traffic, I don't know if I know that Chuck knows this because he's a traffic guy, but that Yates Road is crazy. During school hours, the rush hour traffic coming home, right by a slow school district right in front of my house. It's just crazy, and you're going to put all these other people in there. I don't see no way of everybody commuting through there. He didn't say nothing about the sight line, what we're going to be looking across the street. I know there's nobody else here that lives there because there's only about 5 or 6 of us that have acre lots that face that. The rest of those are subdivisions, but that's a major concern. I've been there 20 years, and I know we have to change, but does that have to be dropped off in our front yard? Or in some cases, somebody's backyard, what we're looking at? Thank you.
Yes.
Morning, Frank Canavaca, live at 5336 Song Sparrow Court. I have one of the properties that butt up against the property line, and it's a 2-story house. I do have a concern about privacy for my family. The rear of my house, which is going to be the rear of their buildings, basically those are all the bedrooms. So my two children and myself, now we're going to have to close our windows and not enjoy the sunlight that comes in through there. Another thing is, please be mindful of all the traffic that's going to be coming down Town Park Boulevard. You do have Mosaic that's going to be dumping into there. Now you're going to have another entrance or exit into Town Park Estates. And also the other concern is, nobody, like the other gentleman, nobody's really talking about the folks that live on the east side of Yates. Those are very nice properties. Most of them, their backyards are going to be facing a 4-story building. And the only other 4-story building in that general area is the Geico building. Nothing else. The highest will be that 3-story Mosaic. Everything else is 2-story in that general area. And also, Geico will be opening their offices again. A lot of their remote workers will be coming back to work there. So that increase of traffic for those employees will increase as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Morning, my name's Kevin Lefkowitz. I live at 3665 Sand Hill Crane Drive, resident of Town Park, longstanding, 50 built my house about 15 years ago. I'm not going to talk about traffic. You guys have heard enough about that. I'm going to talk about a couple issues that are more pressing to me outside of the traffic, and that's the educational issues or lack thereof in the area and public safety concerns. Currently, as you heard, our kids are being bused to Sleepy Hill Middle, 12, 13 miles away. Our kids are being bused to George Jenkins High School. Right now, they may have purchased land. We have nothing in the area. Not only to compound that, there's also an existing bus driver shortage from before COVID that is also every single day our residents are getting text messages and emails telling us that the buses are going to be late. Some of our kids aren't coming home until 5:30 sometimes, which is a little ridiculous when you get out at 3 o'clock. Outside of that, my public safety concerns are, we really, from Lakeland Police Department, and they're doing the best that they can with what they got, but they don't have the capacity to increase coverage down by us. We have such a low presence of coverage in our area that we've actually had to resort paying out of our pockets from the HOA for special details just to get a police presence in our neighborhood multiple times a month. It has helped. We've caught a lot of speeders. People enjoy seeing the police officers, but until they build a substation or something where we could have a constant presence down in South and Southwest Lakeland, it's not a situation that's going to improve. Adding all these apartments and everything is going to obviously compound that. Single bedroom apartments tend to be more of a hot spot for emergency services. Lakeland Fire Department, the closest station is the one on Greenfield, and that services that neighborhood. Right now, it's an average of, from dispatch to arrival, of over 12 minutes to get to Town Park and Riverstone. That's before they add the other, between Grisham Trails, Hawthorne Mills, and Mosaic. I believe there's a little over 1,800 more residential units already planned for that area. I would just say that between the public safety concerns that I have right now and the lack of the available public education in the area, I personally find it a little irresponsible to continue adding residences to this area without addressing the non-traffic infrastructure issues first. Thank you very much.
Anyone else with any comments? Okay. Well, staff will consider all of the comment. Do you have something else to say?
I did want to touch on a couple topics that were brought up. One being most important with safety and income and demographics. We have to be really careful that we're not getting into the Fair Housing Act that is discriminating against apartments, where I'm facing that a lot in throughout Polk County, is people assume that an apartment complex is going to bring crime and a certain level of income of family, or have 7 or 8 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment, where we need to be looking at what about the people that Geico is recruiting and a headhunter found them, brought them here. They need a place to live to see if they're going to actually buy a house in Lakeland. People, because of the real estate market right now, people are selling their homes at inflated rates because they've raised their children. They don't need a 3-4 bedroom home anymore and don't want to keep up with the yard and the pool. And they're looking for a 1-bedroom apartment, and there's no developer that is going to build a 3-story apartment building when they're not required to do elevators and put elevators in. So the 4th story is where that comes into play, that we need that 4th story because of the fire marshal requirement for the elevator. And then it does meet a need in this community. An article was just published that the Lakeland area was the 7th fastest growing community in the nation, the first fastest growing in the state of Florida. There is a need for multifamily. I will get that percentage to you, the deficit, because I also read an article recently on the deficit of apartments. We have several clients that are moving here because of they're either in the development business or whatnot. And I just did an apartment complex in North Lakeland, and the site manager, they're called every day for vacancies. One vacancy came available, and within 30 minutes it was taken. That's North Lakeland, but still, it's Polk County. It's the community that we live. We need to provide alternatives to single-family homes if we're going to recruit workforce and that type of thing. The other thing with the schools, I will say that I want to say between 2003 and 2008, the school board did buy property off of Yates. They bought 30 acres, I believe, south of Bruce Wagner that was slated for a middle school. And then they purchased, I believe it was over 80 acres further south on Yates for a high school. There were some environmental concerns. They wanted to put football fields, but they'd have to cross the creek to get there, so that was kind of put on hold. And then the economy tanked in 2000. It could be anywhere. I think it was 2010, but I know it started declining, and then for a long time nobody did any development. So with infrastructure like that, and to address fire, police, and schools, a community is not going to invest in infrastructure waiting on rooftops to come. They're not going to build a school waiting for that school to become, the need is not there, or else the funding would be made. And developments like this bring impact fees so that that can occur. So the utilization of impact fees will address any kind of deficit in infrastructure. But no one's going to build a fire station in any municipality waiting for rooftops to come to serve that area. So I think that's very important to mention. There was some mention of the comp plan and land development code, but what was not mentioned, and will be, because we don't have a staff report yet, we'll be back in front of you next month, but in 2008, there was such a thing called the Southwest Sector Plan, and it took a look at the rate of growth that was occurring because those rooftops with Hawthorne Mill and all of that. I did Morgan Creek Preserve. They only built one phase. Recently, you all just allowed some higher density on another phase. But in 2003, I annexed the property all the way to into the city limits at the corner of West Pipkin and County Line Road, and began working on getting a Publix there. At one time I had a sign that said, "Coming soon, Publix 2011." Well, it just opened in July of 21. So it's approving rooftops. It takes time to get them permitted, just like Chuck said, 18 to 24 months. But this is a very fast-growing area in both with the airport, with Amazon, and with residential. This is an area of growth, and we need to be able to offer a different housing product, and that's why we targeted the one bedroom, because there's no place that I know of, and like you heard today, the project before ours was to propose all two bedroom. We've only done mixed, and usually there's not a lot of one bedrooms, and so like John was saying, we know a guy that he looked everywhere. He had a contract for an apartment in Lakeland, and the rent, between the time he signed something to hold it, the rent went up $250. There is such a need for multifamily development, and in our instance, we're proposing the one bedrooms. So we do hope that you all will have some more information to you with regards to transportation. We'll do the viewpoint, the site analysis, and we'll be back before you next month, and we'll have a staff report at that time. Thank you.
Other comments? Any other questions? Chuck?
Mr. Chair, thank you. From a staff standpoint, I think the traffic study is going to be absolutely critical to being able to help us draft a staff report with conditions that are appropriate for the site. The project to the north that was recently approved, they had a full-blown traffic study that was available for us to review even ahead of the public hearing. And so we kind of knew where the problem spots were at that time. And I'm still concerned of, certainly Town Park Boulevard and Yates. Will that trigger the need for a signal? Are the lanes sufficient at that intersection to handle the additional traffic? I think we've got capacity at Yates and Pipkin, but where at least I'm personally concerned is down at the south end of the corridor at Yates and Ewell. That was recently signalized within the past few years, but that intersection is certainly constrained. How much traffic is going to be heading to the south, as well as traffic going back into the neighborhood on Town Park Boulevard. So that traffic study is going to be absolutely critical. And I know Ms. Case mentioned this about the view shed analysis from Town Park Estates from the west, but also getting some additional information on the buffer on the east side of the site facing Yates Road. What do the cross sections look like? The illustration here, definitely shows a lot of green area with which to work. What's going on in that area? What kind of plantings, tree cover? What does that cross section look like to address Yates, in its entirety? I think another concern is just related to form and height. We do have residential high and a convenience center up at the intersection of Yates and Pipkin. And typically, we do want to see a step down in intensities and densities as you start to move away from those types of intersections. And that was something that came up at the commission hearing related to the other project to the north. And so, this is already things we've had as part of another project, but just how do we radiate out from that intersection to this site? Are there opportunities, or there will probably need to be opportunities for lower building heights, maybe different building designs so that it creates more of a compatible form as you start to head in towards the area that is surrounded by single family uses, at least on the west, south, and east. So that's going to be important to work on. And then, I think those are some really key issues. I would say there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I don't know if we're going to be ready for next month for a final decision, but I think that there's a lot of additional analysis that we do need to see. And of course, we will also get in touch with the school district. We've had ongoing conversations with them about education facility infrastructure needs in this area. Most of their focus, frankly, has been in Northeast Polk County. And so we have had conversations about needs in this area. They understand that. There is a redistricting process that I think will be evolving over the next, probably starting within the next year, but evolving for another couple of years after that, to look at redistricting all of the grade levels, throughout Polk County. So there'll be more on that. And certainly, what is the future hold for Wagner Elementary? I think that entire campus is about 163 acres. So the land is generally available, but yes, I know in my last look at the capital improvement plan from the school district, there's nothing in terms of construction around there. So that is another issue that we need to make sure is addressed as well.
Can I just ask real quick, I want to clarify the elevator issue, which I love the idea of an elevator in a building, but it's required with 4 stories. It is not required with 3 stories, but the developer could opt to put it in with 3 stories, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Thank you, Chuck, and we will look forward to either next month or the following to traffic study and all the other issues that you have to address on it. That will take some time. Thank you. That pretty much concludes our public hearing. We're next going to our general meeting. We thank everybody for their participation and for their comments. First item in there actually is the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Item 5, small-scale land use amendment to change the future land use designation from mixed commercial corridor to community activity center, and a major modification of planned unit development zoning to allow for a 3-story, 104,625 square foot commercial building consisting of a 101 625 square foot mini warehouse self-storage facility with 3,000 square feet of ground floor, retail uses on approximately 2.14 acres located at 1141 East Memorial Boulevard. Owner William Thomas Mims, applicant Shelton, Rice, Peterson, and Myers, PA.
Good morning. For the record, Philip Scarce, with principal planner with Community Economic Development. The applicant and staff is requesting a continuance of this case into the May 17th Planning and Zoning Board hearing. The applicant had revised the site plan kind of late in the game, and we just didn't have adequate time to analyze this new site plan along with there'll be changes in some of the elevations and things. So we just need another month just to regroup and to revise the staff report as necessary.
So move to continue this to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6.
Item 6, small-scale land use amendment to change the future land use designation from neighborhood activity center to residential medium, and a major modification of planned unit development zoning for Lakeside Preserve, Ordinance 4382 as amended. Concurrent with a city-initiated request to change the context sub-district designation from suburban corridor to suburban neighborhood on approximately 5.76 acres to allow for up to 120 additional multifamily dwelling units in lieu of 20,000 square feet of retail personal services uses and 45,000 square foot of office, institutional, and hotel uses on approximately 8.57 acres located at the southeast corner of Parkway Frontage Road South and Pipkin Creek Road. Owners, P&H Properties LLC and the Housing Authority of the City of Lakeland, Florida. Applicant Timothy Campbell, Clark, Campbell, Lancaster, Workman, and Arth, PA.
Hi, good morning. For the record, Joshua Cheney, Senior Planner with Community Economic Development. Just to briefly recap the request, the applicant is requesting a small-scale land use amendment to change the future land use designation from neighborhood activity center to residential medium. That is what you see here. The subject property, which is currently vacant, is approximately 8.57 acres in size, and it is part of the Lakeside Preserve Planned Unit Development, which is approximately 449.94 acres. This PUD was originally approved in 2002 when the development was known as Palm Springs. Just briefly, I'm going to go through a couple recent photos I took of the site. This is looking southwest near the intersection of Pipkin Creek Road and South Parkway Frontage Road. This is looking to the east over the site. And this would be the most recent master plan map or site development plan for the PUD in question. Currently, this PUD allows for 461 single-family detached homes as well as 271 multifamily units. And as mentioned earlier, a 20,000 square foot neighborhood shopping center and 45,000 square foot office, religious assembly, institutional, and hotel uses. This PUD has been modified a number of times over the years to revise the site development plan and change the name, as well as alter the setbacks and other design development standards within it. Most recently, in 2019, through a major modification to the PUD, a new site plan was adopted, which redefined the property boundaries to reflect the current ownership, eliminated a planned golf course recreational amenity, identified areas to be set aside as wetlands and conservation, and relocated a previously approved neighborhood amenity center and single-family development nodes, and that's what you see here. The last time we appeared before you regarding this PUD. If the requested modifications before you today are approved by the City Commission, then the proposed changes will allow for multifamily residential development with a maximum of 391 dwelling units. And this is the current site development plan before you today. As part of this request, the applicant has submitted a site plan for the project, and it depicts the proposed multifamily building footprints, off-street parking, internal driveways, access points, buffering, and amenities to be adopted into the PUD. In addition to this request, we have also included a revised site development plan, which the only thing that's really changing in is just a reference here to the multifamily parcel on the north side of the project. At the time when neighborhood activity center land use was applied to this PUD, and that would have been in the early 2000s, the intersection of Pipkin Creek Road and Parkway Frontage Road was envisioned as a strategic location for the future development of neighborhood-level retail, commercial uses, and community facilities to support the long-term residential growth plan for the area. The market has shown little interest in this, in any kind of retail, commercial, or non-residential use on the property. This could largely be due to the one-way configuration of Parkway Frontage Road, south, east of Pipkin Road. If you're familiar with this intersection, it's sort of unusual, and I think it makes access problematic for any kind of retail or commercial use here at this location. In addition to that, not far from this site, probably less than a mile or so as the crow flies, you've got Lakeside Villages. You have a lot of commercial and retail all up and down Hardin. So I suspect for that reason too, that's decreased any interest in this particular location as it relates to being a retail or commercial node. So for that reason, the proposed changes will allow for the development of multifamily project with up to 391 dwelling units on approximately 22.86 acres. And that's what you see here before you. The bulk of this property is currently owned by the Lakeland Housing Authority, which purchased the land in 2006 for future development of affordable housing. Development of the remaining 5.67 acres, which are currently owned by P&H Properties LLC, is currently limited to, again, office, commercial, institutional uses. If approved, both properties could then be sold to a third party for market rate multifamily housing. As you can see here on the site plan, there are 17 buildings, 16 of which are multifamily. And as I mentioned, it includes a clubhouse and recreational facilities. The buildings will be set back approximately 100 feet from the right-of-way for Pipkin Creek Road and 145 feet from the Parkway Frontage Road south. To the east, the property is buffered by a heavily wooded area. This area was formerly mined. And to the south is Lakeside Preserve, the single-family residential component of this PUD. The requested residential medium future land use designation is consistent with the existing land use, and I'll go back to that map, excuse me. And this allows for a gross density of up to 12 units per acre. Under the combined PUD, this would translate to a total of 391 multifamily units and 461 single-family units, or a gross density of 1.89 units per acre, which is well below the maximum intensity allowed under the RM future land use designation. It should be noted that the Polk County School Board has evaluated this request, and they have determined that Southwest Elementary, which is the site is zoned for, has adequate capacity. Likewise, Medela Elementary, which is adjacent to this in terms of the zoning for the school board, they too have adequate capacity at this time. In addition, Sleepy Hill Middle School and George Jenkins High School both have capacities to serve the proposed development. It should also be noted that prior to site plan approval of this multifamily development, concurrency will be evaluated again. They will have to apply for that. Let me go back to the, this is probably a better map. As it relates to transportation, by constructing 120 multifamily dwelling units on the subject property in place of the 45,000 square foot of office and 20,000 square foot of commercial uses, the potential internal capture between different uses goes away. But based on analysis provided by the applicant's transportation consultant, a cumulative 391 multifamily units is expected to generate 2,793 daily trips, 140 AM peak hour trips, and 213 peak hour trips. So essentially, the trip generation is substantially less than what it would be for office or commercial if this site were to be developed with those type of uses. This PUD will access Pipkin Creek Road. This is a Polk County collector roadway. It is not monitored through the TPO's roadway network database. This site also abuts State Road 572 and Drainfield Road. You're aware of the issues regarding the intersection here. It should also be noted that Drainfield Road has an annual average daily traffic volume of 11,600 vehicles with a 2-hour average volume of 406 westbound and 423 eastbound trips. With a directional capacity of 880 vehicles, Drainfield Road operates at this time at a level C. So while the overall Drainfield segment operates acceptably, the nearby Drainfield Road and Waring Road intersection is currently operating at a failing service. In order to address this, FDOT has programmed construction of a roundabout at the intersection in fiscal year 2024 to address the current level of service and operational deficiencies. I should also note the subject property is served by a fixed route transit service operated by the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District via its Red Line. So there is a nearby transit stop on South Parkway Frontage Road, and that's just to the east of Pipkin Creek Road, and there is a deployment pad there at this time. The developer of the adjacent single-family component within the PUD, and that again would be Lakeside Preserve, the single-family component to the south, is seeking development approval for another phase and has submitted a major traffic study, which is currently under review by staff. It appears that a northbound right turn lane will be required on Pipkin Creek Road at Drainfield Road, and it is also possible that an eastbound right turn lane will be needed at that same intersection. And of course, any off-site changes or improvements that are required will have to be coordinated with both Polk County as well as FDOT. So with that, Community Economic Development is recommending approval. We did send letters of notification to 25 property owners within 500 feet. We did not receive any telephone calls, emails, or letters regarding this application. And with that, I'll briefly go over the changes to the conditions of approval. As you can see here before you, the maximum number of dwelling units will be increased to 391. The development standards will be in accordance with MF12 Suburban Neighborhood Context Subdistrict Standards. The site development plan will be adopted as was seen earlier. With the approval of the Director of Community Economic Development, minor changes may be made at the time of commercial site plan review. Landscaping and buffering shall be in accordance with Section 4.5 of the Land Development Code. Outdoor lighting shall be shielded in accordance with Section 4.6 of the Land Development Code. Number 8, ADA compliant sidewalks shall be constructed along the internal access road connecting the required Pipkin Creek Road frontage sidewalk with each principal building and amenity. Bicycle parking shall be installed in compliance with the Land Development Code. Number 9, a transit shelter shall be installed on the adjacent Drainfield Road, South Parkway Frontage Road frontage at this location that is determined to be acceptable by the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District. And finally, as it relates to access, access shall be limited to a main project entrance on Pipkin Creek Road, which shall align with Village Road, and a driveway on Pipkin Creek Road at the southernmost boundary of the multifamily development. If traffic studies acceptable to the city and performed in accordance with city-approved methodology indicate that the latter driveway will create safety or traffic operation problems, the access may be limited to right in, right out only, and access to the road shall be constructed to connect the multifamily and single-family communities within this development. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Any question? Joe?
If I recall at the previous meeting, there was some questions about that access connection to the single-family homes, and I believe that was a private road. Has that been coordinated and discussed?
That's being coordinated as we speak. In fact, we've got a meeting that we're scheduling for later this week with that developer to work out those details. That kind of leads into another kind of overall comment, is that, you know, this is a PUD with two separate developers, And so it's a bit unique. And so what we will be doing is making sure that coordination's occurring related to the access mitigation, particularly some of the improvements that are starting to show up as being needed at the Pipkin Creek Drainfield intersection, as well as that cross access. That cross access will, at the end of the day, be important. And so those discussions are ongoing. So there may be some additional tweaks in terms of timing and how all of this gets rolled out, but it's really a basis of the coordination between the two developers that the city will certainly be facilitating. Kind of 2 points to that as well is that, our intent is not to have a condition that requires the multifamily developer to conduct work that's not allowed on the single-family property and vice versa. And then the other thing too is our intent is to not hold up development approvals based on the performance of the other party. I mean, the intent is that we want to roll out thresholds, percentages for contributions of the improvements that are worked out amongst the developers themselves, but we want to also not penalize, if the developers are working in good faith, we're not going to penalize them. If anything, we would look at phasing options, other things to keep them moving along. And so there's a lot that's happening behind the scenes just because of the nature of this development. The good news is that we would really be dealing with multifamily and a single family developer and not office, retail, other types of developers and developments that may complicate things ultimately when it comes to mitigation.
Is this proposed access road going to be public or private also?
Private.
Chuck, and it should be noted there is an existing easement as well.
There's an easement, and part of the challenge, and Mr. Locke, I think, was alluding to it, is once you get into the easement as it exists today doesn't go all the way to Pipkin Creek Road, and then it stops, I think it stops at Lakeside Preserve Boulevard, which went from intended to be public to a gated private road, and so there's some hiatus, the plural of hiatus, but there's some gaps in the access system that we're trying to work out to make sure that everybody has access to Pipkin Creek Road.
Any other comments, any other questions? So, Joshua, at this point, are you asking us to approve your recommendation pending resolution of the issues that the staff is still working on?
Yes.
And I believe those conditions are, the ongoing coordination is addressed through the conditions, and the conditions adequately address that coordination. So to me, we're in good shape.
Okay. I hear a motion to approve the recommendation.
I move to approve the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Joshua.
Item 7, plat approval for grasslands west on 20 acres, generally located west of Hardin Boulevard, north of Parkway Frontage Road North, and northwest of Lakeside Village Circle. Owner, Grasslands West Investment LLC, applicant Mark Wilson, Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc.
Good morning again, Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. I am your closer today, so I'll be with you for the rest of the items. This is a subdivision plat for Grasslands West. This is located to the east of Lakeside Villages and the multifamily just to the north of that. Kimley Horn and Associates, on behalf of the Grasslands West Investment LLC, have submitted a subdivision plat for the Grasslands West subdivision. The proposed plat consists of 88 lots on approximately 20 acres, generally located west of Hardin Boulevard, north of Parkway Frontage Road North, and northwest of Lakeside Village Circle. Plats are reviewed by the city's subdivision review team for compliance with Article 9, as well as the Land Development Code. In total, it should be noted that this has received approval or conditional approval in the case of our utilities department, as there were some offsite issues that are being finalized. But again, they have given it a conditional approval. So we are recommending approval to the P&Z board as this is presented to you now. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
I move to approve the recommendation.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank
Nice to see some houses going in.
Item 9, subdivision plat approval for Lakes at Laurel Highlands, Phase 3A on approximately 210.15 acres, generally located east of Airport Road and north of State Road 570, Pope Parkway. Owner, D.R. Horton, Inc., applicant, Taylor Trough American Surveying and Mapping, Inc.
I think we may have got these.
I think that was item 9.
So we're on 22-001, correct?
Yes.
That's a good one.
Okay, so this one, it's the same applicant in both cases, but this subdivision plat is for Lakes at Laurel Highlands. American Surveying and Mapping on behalf of D.R. Horton has submitted a plat for Winston Park Boulevard. I apologize. I want to make sure, which item are you on?
Well, we accidentally skipped.
I think I skipped 8, I'm sorry.
We can go to 8 if you.
I'll go back to 8. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm...
Item 8, subdivision plat approval for Lakes at Laurel Highlands, WPB, on approximately 20.57 acres, generally located east of Airport Road and north of State Road 570, Polk Parkway. Owner, D.R. Horton, Inc., applicant, Taylor Trough American Surveying and Mapping, Inc.
Good morning again, Joshua Chain with Community Economic Development. American Surveying and Mapping Incorporated on behalf of D.R. Horton has submitted a plat for Winston Park Boulevard. This is within the Lakes at Laurel Highlands residential subdivision. The proposed plat includes the proposed right-of-way and the accompanying utilities and stormwater tracts and a future development tract. This is on approximately 20.57 acres, and this is generally located east of Airport Road, north of State Road 570, which is the Polk Parkway. And as I mentioned before, plats are reviewed by the city's subdivision review team in compliance with Article 9 and the Land Development Code, and staff is recommending approval of this plat to you today.
Anybody have any questions on Joshua on this one?
I'm going to recuse. I worked on this project back in 2007, but I just want to be transparent.
I'm not familiar with the history on this one. This was before my time. Can we just get some background?
Yeah.
About the job a little bit.
In the beginning, I want to say the original zoning for Lakes Laurel Highlands was approved back in about 2005, and much higher unit count. So I think we were somewhere closer to 800 single-family units at the time. Of course, over time, additional engineering analysis and surveying and planning has occurred. I think kind of what we're looking at in its totality, Lakes Laurel Highlands is probably going to build out around 631 single-family units. Big part of that kind of traffic mitigation / connectivity requirement for this project was the completion of Winston Park Boulevard. Winston Park Boulevard is a 2-lane collector road that will run from Airport Road north of the Parkway to North Parkway Frontage Road just west of Waring. We've tried to engage District 1 DOT since I know I've got some correspondence going back to 2006 to get feedback. I think there's been as of late some questions regarding the jurisdiction of North Parkway Frontage Road at that specific location. So District 1 out of Bartow has transferred the permitting authority of the connection to North Parkway Frontage to the Turnpike Enterprise, who's conducting additional analysis to see exactly what that connection looks like. All that's being said to say that one of the PUD conditions is that the roadway be completed all the way through in 3 phases. What we'll do is we're going to be working with the developer to administratively modify the PUD to allow a 4th phase because of this permitting question. And it is certainly not, the developer has done her due diligence over the years to try to get a clarification on this issue, just where we are at this point. What's going to be important with Winston Park Boulevard as well is that it will line up with the main spine road at Lakeland Central Park.
which is the business park development on the west side of Airport Road, 724 acres, which is under construction as we speak as well. And the intent is that, through these two developments, we end up with a collector road system that connects employment, residential, takes pressure off the Parkway, Airport Road, and drain field in southwest Lakeland. So this has been part of a plan that's been evolving now for 17, 18 years, and this is just the next evolution in that process. The other thing that'll be note too is that the school district does own a tract within Lakes of Laurel Highlands on Western Park Boulevard. Status of that, I think, is still kind of up in the air on whether the school district will take advantage of that, but that land is available, and so that's another potential use within the development.
Any questions? Any comments? You're asking us to approve the recommendation
Yes.
on item 8, yes. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the plat approval.
I'll second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Now, Item 9. Subdivision plat approval for Lakes at Laurel Highlands Phase 3A on approximately 210.15 acres, generally located east of Airport Road and north of State Road 570 Pope Parkway. Owner, D.R. Horton, Inc., applicant, Taylor Trough, American Surveying and Mapping, Inc.
Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. This again is American Surveying and Mapping Incorporated on behalf of D.R. Horton. And this subdivision plat is for Lakes at Laurel Highlands Phase 3. It does consist of 110 lots as well as accompanying open space and wetlands tracts. This is on approximately 210.15 acres, and this is generally located east of Airport Road and north of State Road 570. Plats are reviewed by the city's subdivision review team for compliance with Article 9 and the Land Development Code, and staff is recommending approval of this to the Planning and Zoning Board. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Motion to,
I'll need to recuse on this one as well.
we have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. The last one, Ron.
Item 10, report of City Commission action on Planning and Zoning Board recommendations, along with Business Development and Transportation Manager's report.
All right, well, definitely staff has been working at warp speed to process all the various land use zoning actions that's been coming before not only the Planning and Zoning Board, but the Commission. Yesterday, the City Commission approved the proposed Arby's, or the fast food restaurant use on out parcel 2 at Sam's Club Plaza. They denied without prejudice the Hardin Boulevard Personal Storage Facility right there at Hardin, just north of Grasslands Boulevard. We probably will see a revised plan at some point in time, but that is still to be determined.
That come back through this?
It really depends on the level of modifications or change, and certainly we'll be working closely with the city attorney's office to make sure that if it's substantial enough, we do want the P&Z to see that again. The Lake Merriam Apartments, that item was continued. We are getting additional information from the applicant, as well as addressing some capacity issues on Lake Merriam Drive. We had a meeting yesterday with the Canopy School District to take a look at some of our options in that corridor. Probably, I think it's really more closer to Cleveland Heights Boulevard because of right-of-way constraints, but those conversations are ongoing, and so May or June we would expect that would go back to the commission again. Lower number of units, lower building height, with some solutions to Lake Merriam Drive being offered as well from the city and the county. In terms of applications and kind of coming attractions for next month, we've got a conditional use request to convert an 8-bed group home on Myrtle Street to a 2-family dwelling unit.
We have a conditional use permit request as well for a church at 210 Papel. It's an existing church, but they want to add a building, and so this would bring them in compliance with the land development code. Big one that I'm sure will gain a lot of attention is the land use and PUD request for what's called Gibson Trails up the Wedgewood Golf Course. So that would convert the golf course to a multifamily townhome community. That's going to be a sizable development, so I would expect that we're going to have a lot of engagement on that project and a lot of discussion, various issues going forward on that. We've got a project out on Swindell Road, close to County Line Road, which is a annexation, land use and zoning to accommodate about a 101,000 square foot warehouse building immediately east of Weldine. So it would have access fairly close to Interstate 4 right there at County Line Road. And so that'll be coming forward. We've got a land use change and a PUD request for an affordable workforce housing multifamily development on Olive Street between Central and Westgate. So that will be coming forward. And then Morgan Creek Tract E is back. This was something that the Planning and Zoning Board and the City Commission discussed a little over a year ago. The description on the sheet here says 90 single-family detached units. It probably will end up being less than that. As you recall, that proposal was, even with a staff and a Planning and Zoning Board recommendation for approval, that was denied at the City Commission. And so, I think that what's shown here is going to be changed by the time it comes back for hearing. So there's definitely a lot to choose from next month's meeting, and so it should be a fairly long one.
Not short like this one.
Correct.
So bring snacks.
But thank you all for your patience and your service as you go through these items. All the easy ones are done. So congratulations, you've got the complicated ones that are multifaceted. So we appreciate your tenacity and patience.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Anybody have anything else?
I kind of do. I just want to say on the record, when we approved a daycare a year and a half ago on the corner of Carlton and Polk, it's pretty much finished and it looks fantastic. And it's such a wonderful addition to the neighborhood because I live in that neighborhood. So I am so pleased to see it come to fruition. That's all I got to say.
So we did something right.
It is a phenomenal, I'm amazed at what they were able to do with that existing house.
I am as well, and it's beautiful, and I'm so happy to see it.
And it's a needed facility.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Daycares are at a minimum.
Which one was this?
On the corner of Carlton Street and Polk.
Alta Schoolhouse. That was one where, through the Planning and Zoning Board, I think they had looked at the Dean House and another location, and this was, I think, their third official location.
Third location and third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm.
Just one more thing. We did hear they're bringing back the boards and committees in your dinner. That's the kind of scheduled Tiger Town social event. Pre-COVID, it was generally offered in the spring. I believe this year it's going to be in August, so it has been over 2 years since we had it. And that's done to recognize your service on the board there. So that will be sometime in August, and they will send out probably cards here pretty soon announcing that event if you haven't already received them.
That's good. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Second. Time to get to work.